Hello everyone, and welcome to another book discussion video by Centipede Geek. Today I'm going to talk about the book Splatterpunks 2, Over the Edge. In this video, this is part 2 of my book discussion videos for Splatterpunks 2, and I'm going to talk about the second short story contained in the horror anthology novel, and that short story is called Impermanent Mercies by the author Kathy Koja. And she is known for doing a visual hallucinogenic story about a descent into alcoholism and delusion, and that story is by the name of Bad Brains. That's mainly what she's known for, and she's done a few other things as well. And she's known for doing her really sick and vile and disgusting horror stories. And now I'm going to discuss what the short story is about. So this short story was roughly, this short story was roughly about 10 pages long, about 3 pages longer than the last one. And though I will say it's just as sick and just as disgusting as the last one I read. So this one we have this kid, and this kid at the very beginning, little boy, he is being taken pictures by a photographer out by a train on the railroad tracks. And this kid is being taken pictures with his dog, and then the dog runs off. And as the dog is running off, of course, a train is coming by, and what do you think happens? Well, it's exactly what you're thinking. A train comes by, hits the dog, and the boy is trying to run after the dog, and the photographer holds the boy back, and by the time the train passes, the boy ends up picking up the dog's body, and the head has been now detached from the body. He picks up the body and the head of his once known and beloved dog and runs on home with it, and the photographer, tries to run after him, but the kid is nowhere to be found. Well, now he goes to the kid's house in the next few days, and he sees that the kid has done something very strange, very odd, and just weird in every circumstance. And this kid has turned his dead dog into a doll. He's become sort of, I guess you could say, a ventriloquist. He's become a ventriloquist guy. He has his hand in the back of the dog, and he's making his dog talk to the photographer. The photographer's name is Ellis, I believe. And now this man starts to go to the kid's house every day and talk to the kid. They go to the convenience store, 7-Eleven together, and he always brings this doll, this ventriloquist doll, with him everywhere he goes, to his house, to the convenience store, everywhere. The kid also doesn't seem to have any parents, which is also very weird. Now, then Ellis starts to become friends with the dog that is, now a doll. He starts to become friends with him. And the dog starts to tell him, of course it's the kid talking through the dog, he starts to tell him things about, like, a prophecy. He starts to tell him things that are going to happen in the near future. And at first Ellis is, hesitant. He doesn't really believe him. He doesn't think it's real at all. But it is. And sooner or later, Ellis actually becomes dependent on these things. And he actually goes to the dog for advice. So it gets really cool. And it just gets very strange. So he starts to go to him for advice and that sort of thing. It also seems that the dog knows previous events in the past life of what Ellis has done in the past. And then, this is, you thought that was weird? This is where the story gets extremely weird. The dog starts to ask Ellis, the photographer, to do something for him. He starts to ask him to go out and kill people so he can then feed the dog. So, what does Ellis do? He's a little hesitant and reluctant at first, but he ends up doing what the dog previously asked him, and he starts to go out and kill people. So he brings them their bones and their bodies and their flesh, and sooner or later, the dog grows tired of this and says, "This isn't enough. I need more." And Ellis says, "I'm doing everything I can." And the dog's like, "Not everything." And Ellis is like, "Well, I have one last thing I can do for you." And he says, Take me instead. I'm tired of killing people for you." So what does Ellis do? He strips down naked and sacrifices himself, and that is when, finally, the dog actually comes to life, like for real it seems, and starts to eat the flesh and the bones of Ellis, the photographer, and that's the way the story ends, with the boy, little 9-year-old boy, smiling behind the box that the dog was in and laughing. Kind of an open ending. It's one of those short stories that really messes with your mind. You don't exactly know how it ended, but you have a kind of a good idea, but you're still unsure on a few things, and that's honestly what makes it such a great story. You know, it's only 10 pages long, but it still turns out to be quite a magnificent story. And let me tell you a few reasons why. First off is the way it's written. It's written in a very good way. It's written in a very descriptive way. I forgot to say this. As the man starts to go out and kill people, he actually starts to become attracted and aroused by the young boy, and he becomes sort of, I guess you could say, a pedophile in a sense, where he starts to picture having sex with a young boy, and it starts, so it's almost like it's like a character study on a man that used to be a decent guy, and as he's starting to do things for this dog, this ventriloquist dog, as he starts to do these things, he starts to become a pedophile and starts to become a pretty sick guy. And I like that because it shows that anybody is capable of anything, at least I think so. That it shows that anybody, you know, when given the right motives, can descend off into a unique and stylistic madness. You know, anybody's capable of anything, and it shows that in this story, that is definitely true, and that's the case, because this guy used to be decent, and as he starts to kill people, he starts to become, you know, psychologically, you know, disordered. He starts to become obsessive with this little boy, and he starts to picture some things that just aren't right in the head at all in any sort of way. So I like that about it. I also like the way, like I said, I like the open ending. You know, we find out, you know, the dog might actually be alive, and it may have not have died by the train. We don't really know, but that's what it leads us to think with the open ending. But my theory is that the dog has been dead all along, and that the kid was just using the dog as an essence of a patrician, so he could actually just eat the people. He's sort of a cannibal, I guess you could say, and he was just using Ellis the photographer as a pawn in his chess game in order to get more bodies to kill. But anyways, I really thought that the short story was called Impermanent Mercies, and I really thought that it was just another very, very unique. You don't see short stories like this written every day, and I just loved it so much because it was really unique. It's not quite as disgusting and as vile as the first short story. You know, the first one, you know, talked about the stitching of a girl's, you know, vagina, but it is pretty sick because you have a 9-year-old that, you know, is using his dog as a ventriloquist doll, and then we have a man who is becoming a pedophile slowly as he becomes more obsessed with the boy and the dog's prophecies that he keeps telling him. So, once again, it's very sick, very twisted, and very disgusting, and like I said, if you don't like the bizarre, the grotesque, and the twisted stories, if you're not into the whole erotic thing, then you're definitely not going to like Splatterpunks 2 Over the Edge. Not all the stories are like that, though. I've actually read about 3 or 4 other stories. I've been skipping around and stuff, and I've learned that not all of them are erotic, and not all of them are sexual. Quite a bit of them are, but there's a few here and there that are kind of your traditional short story, and they're not as strange and as twisted as some of the previously ones are. Anyways, like I said, I give 2 solid thumbs up to the Impermanent Mercies by the author Kavi Koja. She did a great thing. It's original, it's unique, and it's just really cool that authors can be so unique and still make something very twisted and makes it resonate with you long afterwards. Anyways, that's my book discussion part 2 video over Impermanent Mercies by Kavi Koja. Make sure to stay tuned for part 3 over the 3rd short story in the next few days. See you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe.